here we go. And we're going to discuss some things and some interesting things. But the first thing I wanted to talk about for just a moment was what happened this week. And I was watching some of the priests and Cardinal O'Connor and some of the others, that the families had come to him and that people were killed in this plane explosion, you know. And he said the people were saying, why does God let something like this happen? And this is what he was saying. See? And those of you who think differently about these things, place yourself in a position of this thing you call God. And then ask the question back down to here. Why are you people doing this to one another? What's the matter with you? You see, and then if you have a plane and you have this explosion, you have psychologically, and in psychological tests that they do, you have the question why. And you'd be surprised you find answers as a result of that. So you say, why did the plane, what happened? You say, well, it looks like a bomb blew it up. That's not why. That is not why. That bomb did not wait in line to get a ticket. That bomb did not walk or drive itself to the airport. That's not why the plane was hurt like that. And of course, if it was a bomb, which appears at some kind of explosion, there's several reasons. You can have a person on there who wanted to commit suicide, and you could have a mentally disabled person that did that. You could have a person who placed it in somebody else's luggage to collect insurance and do something like that. Well, you could have terrorists. You could have that. And so all of these things would address themselves to why. Of course, we're in church, and so what I thought was interesting is I saw all these people were getting counseling from religious people. The very reason for these types of things is religious people. The reason buildings blow up and all of these types of things is religious people. So you can, if you don't want to think of it in this particular context, think of the plane in Lockerbie, Scotland. Why is it blown up? Because there was a group that didn't like our group. See, you have to understand, the bomb itself, the plastic, doesn't know anything about this. The bomb had nothing to do with it. It wasn't even a bomb. It was a thought, which is a cause, was made and became an effect and became a bomb. See? But in Scotland, if it's the same as you have here, what do you have here? You have groups. You were part of a group. You were raised in a group. And the first thing, or the thing that you were taught in your group, was that your group was right and the other group was wrong. Say, my group is right and the other group is wrong. See, there was a time. Let's take like the Muslim or the Arab group, and we'll take the Christian or the Jewish group. There was a oneness there up to the time of Abraham. Everybody was thinking the same way. Everything was fine. There was no problem. But then something was introduced into the cultures. And this group that we belong to adopted a policy, which you'll see in this book, that says God told us that we should take their land away from them. See? Now, we have a choice. We could read the book and say, gee, I don't think God would tell you to go in there and murder little children and rape women and do all of these things that God tells you in here and take all of their land and take everything. But we decided we were going to join with this group. See, and this group is the one that lost all of its land and lost all of its cities and had all of this spell. So this group became hateful to these who took their land away, saying, God told us to do this. See, don't forget, it was theirs. This group came along and took it away and said, God said to do it. You always justify what you do when you say, God told me to do it. It's like the devil made me do it. God made me do it. Right. So you justify taking their land away from them, and then they get ticked. There's another word you use, but I won't use it this morning, but they really get mad. And so not only does this happen, where you have the Jewish group, which is taking the land away from the Arab group, when they did, and subjecting their people to a lot of heartaches and so forth and so on. But now you have a situation where you have a hate between these two groups. This one's saying it's justified to have this one's saying it's not, and so they hate each other, they're fighting with each other, and they're killing each other, and all of these things are happening, and they're blowing each other. They've been doing this for thousands of years. But now your group decides to take sides. And your group has decided to take sides with this group. And so we're all in this together. In fact, we call it the Judeo-Christian ethic, or Judeo-Christian. So we're in this together. We even send, like the good groups, the people like of Africa and the people, the Indians, that are harmonizing with nature and really know what God is. We send our groups go over there to change them. Say, oh, you shouldn't do this. You should be like us. We don't tell them that us are evil. You know, that half of our kids are whacked out on pot and all this. We don't tell them this. And we've caused it. It's not that, you know, it's like the bomb. People don't become drug addicts because, well, there's nothing else. I think they become a drug addict. They become drug addicts because of the system that they live in and the irrelevance of their systems and their religions. So we joined this group, and now not only is this group a target because of the things they've done, we are a target. Right. I know when I was a kid and went to church, I was told never go into never go into their church. You'll lose your sanctity, or you'll lose your salvation if you go into their church. Don't ever do that, you know. And so now what you have here is this terrible thing. So you bring it all the way down to why, and you say the reason that plane blew up, if this is the cause, is because of a hate between these two groups. And he said, well, why do they hate each other? Because one group said that their God told them to take the other group's homes away. It was just like you. How would you feel if somebody came to your property and threw you and your family out and took your house and moved in? And you say, well, you can't take my house. You're not allowed to do that. That's not, oh, yes, God told me to do that. It's okay. I was told by God to do this, so don't worry about it. Everything is fine. Look, it's in my book. Just happens to be in the book. Well, they have a book, too, and they have a book called the Koran. And their book doesn't say that. And their book's from God, too. Oh, what happened? So we made our God, and we made our God called Jehovah. And our God said, get the land from the Arabs. Here, take the sword, and take the Arabs' land, and kill everybody, and kill their children. It's in your book. Your leader, Moses. He said, when you go in, take all the little boys and kill them. It's in the book. The little boy children, it said. And the little girl children who have lied with a man, kill them. But the little girl children who are virgins, take them for yourself. That's your traditional family. It's in your book. You want to get back to the traditional family, it's in the Bible. I have Bible teaching in school. There it is. It's in the book. I mean, I'll show you. Black and white's in there. So Jehovah says, charge! Now these guys on the other side, here they come. What are we going to do? Let's make a God. So here you've taken all of their land and you've subjected them to all of this hell, and then you turn around and they construct a God called Allah. And you say, Allah, what do you want us to do? And Allah says, I want you to get the damn land back. Charge! And it's happened ever since. Now the point is, your groups, which are called Christians, have joined with this group and ticked off this group. So now you get blown up with them. Do you understand that? And when you get blown up with them, who do you call to give you counseling? They! The group that's responsible for the whole thing. The group that created the Judeo-Christian ethic, the traditional concepts of our religious foundation, our biblical, you call them, and they're going to figure everything out for you. I don't think so. The cause of the problem is now going to soothe you. And it's a horrible thing. And how do you explain this? And everybody's obviously would get terribly irritated at the horror of this thing. But you know, when you have one person whose family you have killed, and they turn around and they kill your family, then you open your own book and it says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's what it says. So, what's the story? The story is that the evil is not the bomb. The evil isn't even the person that created the bomb. The evil is the religion that has motivated the hate between people who would do that to each other. And the sooner that that evil called religion is destroyed and left away from us, then we can start understanding people as human beings. Things will start to be okay. Never, as long as you have religion that says one group is better than the other, or one group should take with the other, or one group is saved and the other group is lost. Never, as long as that occurs, will you have peace on this planet. And then never, as long as you are a member of any group, will you ever find peace. You'll never find peace until you become an individual and you stand alone and find it within yourself. Now, you want to say, I want to put things a little bit in perspective for you. Who are you? Your group, your religious group, has told you you're the center of the universe. All right? I want to give you a picture of your home so you can put things a little bit into perspective. You were taught, early Christianity said the whole world revolves around the planet Earth. Everything is part of the planet. I'm going to show you part of the galaxy, universe, Milky Way galaxy. I'm going to show you a picture of it. And if you take a look at it, it puts a little bit of perspective as to what you really are. How important are you really? Okay? And if somebody would, when we get done with that, Ethel, when you get done with that, would you show the people on TV after, when we start talking about it, okay? All right? Just throw them down, let them sort them out, just because I want to get this done quick because we're running down. Time is running out. All right? But if you take a look at this, do you know what that's a picture? That's not even a picture of the Earth. That's a picture of the sun. The Earth is some little pimple somewhere on the other side of it somewhere. You know what you are? You are a pimple on the rear end of the Milky Way. And every once in a while somebody scratches you. That's it. You have a hard time trying to figure out if there are people on other planets. Will you take a look at all the little white dots there? What's the chances? You can't even see your dot. It's so insignificant. That where it says you are here is a picture of the sun. And you know how many quadrillions of them there are? And that's not even a very big one. You can look and see some really big ones if you look around. But take a look at any of those little dots. And it puts you a little bit in a perspective. I wanted to read this on TV because I got this card from a young or lady, I don't know if it was young or older. Her name is Georgine Walter from Selma, Oregon. She says, keep up the good work. When I was 9 years old, she says, I gazed into the universe and knew in a glance what you are now broadcasting. At that time, I had no words to express the fullness of what the vision was, but as I grew older, I began to speak of the truth. I saw that as big as it all is as small as it all is. It's all the same pattern. In other words, we are in the body of God, and the stars are His cells. As the same in us, each cell in us is a star in the universe of God. We are the God of our body of stars. Isn't that nice? All right, just hold this out so I'll make a shot. And that's what this is all about. So when we start finding these galaxies and so forth and so on, and they're making these discoveries, remember the Bible said that all of this was going to happen. And now it's happening. And all of the wonders are being discovered by scientists and astronomers, and your religious people don't know anything about it. Let me show you what was it. We talked about quantum physics here for a while, remember? Let me tell you what happened last week at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, Boulder, Colorado. They bombarded a charged atom. And so this single electron began to go clockwise and counterclockwise, however you do that, at the same time. In other words, the thing was spinning in two different directions at the same time. And they separated the two states of the electron, and the result was a pair of what they say ghostly dervishes whirling side by side in opposite directions. Totally independent of each other, yet if they stopped one, the other one stopped. And if they got the other one to spin in the other direction, the other one would stop and go in the other direction. And they said it's like two bulbs, one that's on and one that's off. If you make one go opposite, the other goes, because even though they are two, they are one. They are the same. And basically, this is the magnificent thing when you start getting into religious people who don't know these things, and they talk about body and soul. But once you get them out and you start talking about matter and energy, then you can define it. Then you say, gee, this does work. I understand how this works. So we're learning then to make a contact. If you look at that, I get people talking, they say, well, you talk about E.T. and extraterrestrials and UFOs, because it's in the Bible. But how can you look at that thing and not? How can you look at that thing in your hand and say, we are the only living thing in it? And you can't even find the little pimple that you are. Just like a little bit of acne on the rear end of the... Do they have acne on rear ends of... And so you come into places and you go into meditation. And you start to try to, because you're making contact. You're opening yourself in an age where the receptors of the right hemisphere of the brain, and music does it. Pythagoras knew it. Music stimulates receptors at the right side of your brain. Yeah, music, you can see it. I was watching a concert the other night. I was with Peter Gabriel. I watched Peter Gabriel, but I was watching a Peter Gabriel concert, and everybody was up with their cigarette lighters, and they're all waving their cigarette lighters back and forth. Why do they do that? Why do they do that? Because there's something inside that has been stimulated by the sound. Sound stimulates receptors in your brain. Buddha taught that. Pythagoras taught that. So when you hear these sounds, different receptors, when you come in with a purpose and a direction to meditate and to raise yourself to a higher level of consciousness and use these special sounds that stimulate the receptors in your brain, and they lift you up. Oh, you never knew any of these things. Half of you sitting here, you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Because nobody's ever told you. Nobody's ever shared any of this stuff with. But it says in the Bible in Ephesians 5:14, wake up, that you that sleep. Wake up from the dead. Come to life. Start to understand. You got teachers in school that have no idea of this stuff. You got ministers and priests that I can tell you have no idea of this stuff. And yet it's all happening in the sky right over your head. But the scientists know about it. And the astronomers know about it. And they're all seeing these marvelous things happen that have never happened before in the history of the world. And nobody's even bothered to tell you. So you begin to consider a race of people. I've told you that in the Bible it talks about nuclear fission 6,000 years ago. It talks about the speed of light 6,000 years ago. It talks about the construction of your brain 6,000 years ago. It talks about the pineal gland 6,000 years ago. How come? Because this was written by a race of people who are 6,000 years advanced ahead of you, who live on one of those dots there. And I can tell you exactly, if you want to find the particular dot, look at 4555. It's a pretty good shot that you'll find it there. And I gave you the coordinates of it a couple of weeks ago. It shows you exactly where it is. And the Egyptian Coptic said Jesus revealed that to them thousands of years ago. Debbie Sylvia got on the phone, called up the planetarium, Motion County College, and found out about it. And then Joni Schultz downloaded it, and I gave you a copy. It's laying back there. NGC 4555 is a galaxy. It's a galaxy. So now you've come to a place I've told you about God. I've told you where he lives. What you want? What else do you want? I don't know if I can believe that. Who asked you whether you can believe it or not? Well, there's nothing I can say to you say I could believe it. What I'm saying to you is this number was given 3,000 years ago. It's in a mystical book in Egypt. 4555 is the location. And now 1996, 4555 turns out to be a galaxy. And where is it? In Virgo, the Virgin. So now you know what it means, born of a virgin. Sure, you'll find a virgin shall conceive. What are you talking about? Because this group, this intelligence is located there. I mean, when you look in the Bible and you see things talking about, extraterrestrials or UFOs or whatever is described by Ezekiel as fiery chariots, and they describe them as lightning and fiery chariots and cherubim. How would you describe, if you were thousands of years ago and you only could use the language of the people, then how could you describe your television set? Well, I have a box, and the box sits on a table, and there's a hole in the front of the box. And out of the hole there comes people and horses and flying serpents and dogs, and I see colors and voices coming from the hole in the box. Some of you, well, I think it's coming from the hole in your head, you know. Who can understand you? Could anybody understand? Could you hold a discussion about the things that we know scientifically with people from thousands of years ago? Of course not. Now, could the people who are living on one of those dots there who are 6,000 years ahead of you, can they hold a discussion with you? I was up at a meeting. When you see Doyle next time, he's going to, because he tells everybody this. I was at a meeting in Spring Lake the other day, my company. And these are all technical, and they're talking about being on the cutting edge of technology. And so I started telling my boss this. I said, Mike, you're not on the cutting edge of technology. You're a caveman. So everywhere we went up and down the place, he's saying, hey, he called me a caveman. He's calling me a cave. Because why? Because we think what we know, what we've accumulated in knowledge, we've accumulated over the last 75 to 100 years. Before that, the entire earth was a blur. Nobody knew anything. I can show you things about the stars where people were burned at the stake because they talked about the stars or something, and these people thought, oh, they're going to come and people are going to come and get us and all of these. We were so, we don't know nothing about this stuff. Then John 16:12, Jesus says, I have many things to tell you, but you couldn't bear to hear it. If I told you half of the stuff that I would like to tell you, you'd run me out of here right now. You couldn't deal with this stuff. Because why? Because you're not ready. You haven't evolved to the point. You couldn't deal with this kind of stuff. And so how do we find out? We enter this world of mysticism. The word mystic in Greek, you know what the word mystic in Greek means? Be silent. It means to be still. And in Matthew 6 it says, take no thought. In Exodus it tells you to stand still. Be still. Keep quiet. And to enter into meditation. Enter into meditation. Lao Tzu, who was a Chinese mystic, said, those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. And I love Plato. Do you ever read Plato? Oh, I wouldn't read Plato. I've been to Disneyland and I've seen Plato, but I don't know anything about Plato. That's Pluto. Plato wrote a letter, and I'll quote you from Plato's 7th letter. Matters of ultimate concern are best not discussed in writing, but after a period of study, true insight, like a blaze kindled by a leaping spark, is generated in your soul and at once becomes self-sustaining. In other words, at first this is confusing, but when you meditate on it and you begin to then think about it and you begin to study it, then these things become enlightenment. You begin to understand. You understand what your parents haven't a clue about. They don't know anything about this. And your parents, they can't deal with anything like this because their minds are made up. They've reached a conclusion. And as the Bhagwan said, when you've reached a conclusion, your journey is concluded. That's it. Could I go into any of these churches and talk about this stuff? Not a chance. Not a chance. And it's not a question of them disagreeing. They won't even listen. And the reason that people will not listen when you tell them something is because maybe you're telling the truth and it's going to upset all of their security. And it's going to upset the control that they have over people. And it's going to upset the hate that you have. You should be able to go to Iraq and Iran and all of these places on vacation. They're nice people. They're great people. But religion that they have and the religion that we have make us demons to one another. The only thing that makes us hate one another is religion. If there was no religion, it's like John Lennon said. The only thing, if there was no religion, then we wouldn't be hating one another. Their religion says we're the devil. Their religion says they're pagans and they're the devil, and so forth and so on. And so we hate each other. And so then we start to look and we start to seek, but we have to seek outside of religion. We have to start understanding things. You have to start to understand the books that you receive, that you call them Bibles. But you've got to extend yourself beyond the superstition. And you've got to extend yourself beyond sitting in some church and some guy with a robe telling you all of these things that he has no idea. He learned them in some school, and they learned them in some school, and all of it came out of the dark ages of Europe. But that's no good anymore. You live in a real world. You go out in the backyard, and there's a universe there. Don't you want to know about it? It means things. It has an impact on the way you feel. It has an impact on the way you act. It has an impact on your body. It has an impact on the ocean. It has an impact on a woman's cycle. It has an impact on everything. And you don't pay any bit of attention to it. So we listen to churches. Talk about the science of numbers. If you get to the science of numbers, you'll eventually bring it to E.T. If you're willing to listen. Pythagoras learned the essence of gods is defined by number. And actually the word gods in Greek means extraterrestrial. What else is it? What is God? You shouldn't be talking about extraterrestrial. What the heck is extraterrestrial? What do you say? God lives on a planet. So what is he? He's E.T. The Greek Gnostics taught about Abraxas. Have you ever read the story of Abraxas? Read about Abraxas. It's not going to be boring to you. Abraxas is a ruler of the sun, the universe. Well, the key is contained in the fact that in Greek, every letter has a value, has a numerical value. See? And once you understand the numerical value, you get away from the story and you go into the scientific truth of it. The numerical value of the word Abraxas is 365. And then there's Mithra. Mithra was Jesus' twin, born of a virgin, crucified, resurrected at the spring equinox. The king killed the whole bit. The only difference between Mithra and Jesus is that Mithra, you were saved by the blood of the bull. Jesus were saved by the blood of the lamb, because this was in Taurus and this was in Aries. The numerical value of the word Mithra is 365. Because once again, it's the sun god. So the solar year. Who is the twin of Jesus? Now Jesus has a value that is, you want to talk about the second coming of Jesus, and we've talked about it in Pegasus, and we've talked about it in all this as a sun star. Turn on your radio and listen. And every time they tell you to make a long distance call now, they'll say to use his number. Because the number of Jesus is 888. And that's the number, that's the new number that crop circles and so forth and so on, and all of these things. And now the number 888, which is the number of Jesus, is the new number. The international number for dialing long distance is 888. Why? Why not 887? Why not 333? Why not 745? Why is that 888? It's like ohm. Ohm is the word for thousands of years they've used to chant as the electrical energy moved up the chakras through the resistors. And the measurement of electrical resistance is ohm. Why? And all of these things are arranged for you to find out. All of these things are arranged for you to come to grips with, to understand. So we have names of people that are mathematical codes to reveal things to you. You know what Jesus was called by the ancients? He was called the plentiful of Ogdoads. The plentiful of O-G-D-O-A-D-S. The plentiful of Ogdoads. You know what the word Ogdoads means? 8. 8. In other words, he was called the fullness of eights. The fullness of eights. And Irenaeus, the church father, said Jesus' name is an arithmetic symbol known by those who are called. You ought to write that. Irenaeus was a religious guy, one of the church fathers, who said the name Jesus is actually an arithmetic number known by those who are called. Do you know many of you know it? Many of you know it. Now, Jesus was called the fullness of eight because his number is 888. And this is revealed when Jesus is baptized. What happens? A dove comes down, right? Go to page 779 for just a minute. Page 779, Matthew 3, verse 16. Real quick. Okay? He's baptized. And it says, and Jesus, when he baptized, went up straightway, and lo, the heavens were opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove. That's important. The dove is very, very important. The name Jesus, is this hard for you? And I know it's the hardest thing in the world. I know, but this is where you've got to go if you're ever going to break from this mob that blows each other up, okay? The hardest thing for you to know is that this was never a person. That this is much more than a person. It is everything. Okay? And once you dwell on it as a person, you miss this. And when you miss this, then you've missed yourself. You've missed life. This is how, in the Greek alphabet, and this is where this came from. I'm going to put this. Did I drop a? Yeah. Oh, I guess not. But anyhow, in the Greek alphabet, you have the fullness of 8s. The alphabet, every letter has a number. And it's broken into 3 lines. You have the 800, 700, 600, 500, 400, 300, 200, 100. Okay? Those letters that are part of that have a value. This letter will have a value of 800, and so forth and so on. The second quadrant is 2 digits, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Okay? The last is 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right? So that's the Greek alphabet, and that's how all. Now, if you see, if he is the fullness of the gospel, he's the fullness of everything, he's the fullness, is 8, 8, 8. All right? That's who he is, and that's who Jesus. He is everything. He is everything. Now, how many of you know what the number of consciousness is? 800, 1500, 2100, 2600, 3000, 3300, 3500, 3600. No problems? 80, 150, 210, 260, 300, 330, 320, 330. Okay? No problem. 8, 15, 21, 26, 30, 33, 35, 36. 6. 6. This one should be 360? Let's do it again. 80, 150, 210, 260, 300, 330, 350, 360. I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know. Don't tell me I screwed this up. 6, 9, 9, 3. 3 plus 9 is 12, plus 9 is 21, plus 6 is 27, equals 9. Now, here we have that Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, right? Watch me. 800, excuse me, Alpha is 1. Okay? Alpha is 1. Omega is 800. All right? Now, if you look in, what did you just see? And he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove. I'm going to spell out the word in Greek for you of dove. Dove is like this. Okay? That's the Greek word for dove. The numerical value of the Greek word for dove is 801. He is the Alpha and the Omega. And that's why the dove was used. The beginning and the end. The beginning of the end is the first letter in the Greek alphabet and the last letter in the Greek alphabet. So that's where it is. That's where it comes at. 888 is the Logos. All that is. All that is. I am Alpha and Omega. If you look at Revelation chapter 1, verse 11, it says, I am Alpha and Omega. I am the beginning and the end. And 888, which is the universe. 888, which is the sun. 888, which is you within inside of your body, like this lady from Oregon tried to tell you, the universe within you. When 888 raises itself out of the depths of the waters of the lower body and raises itself up into the air of the third stage of consciousness, it is touched by the dove, which is the all-encompassing beginning and the end. Alpha and Omega. Everything complete, full, total. Because why? We have given ourselves to the water, which is the truth of the second stage. We have raised ourselves up into that which is the air with the third stage. And we are touched by the dove. We are touched by the fullness. We are touched by the completeness of the 801, which is the dove. And we become the 888, which is the fullness of the Son of the universe. Friends, that's where all of this stuff came from. And your parents and their parents and their parents have gone to church all of their lives, and nobody ever told them a thing. They haven't a clue. So if you're going to understand that, then you've got to go one step beyond this and correct it. And if I'm telling you something that's wrong, tell me. If I'm telling you something that's not true, stand up. But it is. And you can go into any library, you can go into any college or whatever, and that's it. This was the classical Greek alphabet. In Greek, and since that time, they've added a couple of letters that they don't count in the numerical makeup to, for conversation purposes. But this is the classical Greek alphabet, and this is how it worked, and that's how it's 888, and that's what Jesus is. And if you add up in Greek the letters in the name Jesus, it comes out to 888. Okay? Now, let me just wrap this up by telling you one last thing, and then, okay? And then that's why, like, for those of you who haven't received the key, the Coptic key, you should come here tonight. You got to correct a serious misunderstanding. It doesn't make any difference how old you are. It doesn't make any difference how young you are. You should correct a serious misunderstanding. The Word of God is portrayed as a book. If you see a person, they'll say, I live on the Word. I devour the Word. I'm into the Word. I got the Word, and I got the Word. And the thing is, they got a book. A book has a problem, because a book can be changed. Do you know how many versions of this word there are? Yes. And every one of them is different. Yes. Which means it cannot be, quote unquote, the Word of God. All right? So that's the first thing. And so you'll see people who will open this book and say, you should do this. Why? Because it says so in the Bible. Which Bible? Which Bible? I've had people come in and challenge me, and I remember I had a couple of guys sitting down there, and they were challenging me, and one kid said to me, it says here, thus, the Lord says here, blah, 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 and the other kid says to him, where's that? That doesn't say that in mine. Jeez, mine doesn't say. Of course it doesn't say that, because they're all different. Now let's just look at this and understand it. You have to understand. The New Testament of the Bible is written in Greek. In Greek. That's where the origin of the word comes from. In Greek. It says, now if you look in John chapter 1 verse 14, it said the Word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us. Most people think that means the Bible turned into Jesus, or the Bible turned into God, or the Bible turned into the Word, or Jesus was the Bible. The Greek word is not word. It is logos. And logos means several things, but one thing it does not mean is word. And I'll tell you what logos means. I want you to hold this up for me. Just hold it in your hand for a second and take a look at it, all right? Logos means, okay, order, pattern, proportion, reason. Order, pattern, proportion, reason. It means the universe. It means all that encompasses. It means everything that is part of the existence of life in an orderly pattern, built in proportion to work together in harmony. It means harmony. It does not mean word. Logos means harmony, proportion, order. Pattern became flesh and dwelt amongst us. You are logos. There is a pattern. There is a proportion. There is a harmony. And when you bring yourself in harmony with what you have in your hand there in the galaxies, then you start to understand what this thing called God is. Then you start to realize, wait a minute, the entire order of this universe was made flesh. In other words, part of it was the actual manifestation of life inside of a body. Now I understand what this is. It has nothing to do with a book of writings. Nothing to do with a book. When you translate the Greek into the Latin of the Dark Ages, logos became verbum, which meant word. That's where it came from. But it's not what was intended, because it is not. It's logos. And logos means pattern, harmony, proportion, reason. It means setting forth the natural order of things, the understanding of reason, of natural harmony, the science of the cosmos, of the human mind. It is the order of the universe. It is 888, which is the sun, which is the all-encompassing Alpha and Omega, everything. And it is inside of you. That is why you have inside of you in your abdomen something called solar plexus. It's the place of the sun. And that's why in the Bible, what happens to Jesus in the Bible? He is born of a virgin. In September, the Son is born of a virgin. He's crucified. December 21st, the Son goes through a cross called the Southern Cross. He's in the tomb 3 days and 3 nights. December 22nd, 23rd, and 24th is the winter solstice. He's born again on December 25th. The sun moves in its trajectory. 30 years after his birth, he goes into the waterman John. 30 days after December 25th, the Son goes into the waterman Aquarius. He goes on to select his disciples from fishermen. The Son goes into the sign of Pisces, the fish. He becomes the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world. The Son enters Aries that takes away the cold of the winter. He sits at the right hand of the Father. In the northern hemisphere, the sun moves to the eastern sky or the right side, and summertime comes. He becomes the Lion of Judah. The sun enters the sign Leo, and it becomes the Lion, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. All of these things are the sun, the universe, the logos, proportion. Because inside of you, when you crucify the flesh through your meditation, when you separate from the thoughts and the pineal gland opens and the melatonin begins to flow, that which is the solar energy down here begins to rise just like that does. As a result of the crucifixion, it raises itself up to the pineal gland of the brain, which is Aries, and then it kicks over to the right hemisphere of the brain, and summer comes to your life. Spring comes to your life. All things become new, and the winter of your soul gives way to the newness of the summer of your life, and things begin to explode into life and rationalization and understanding, even to the point where you can come to grips with the fact that Jesus was the Logos, the 888, the all-encompassing universe, which means I understand now why he says, you will find me inside of you. And the things I have done, you can do, because I am the Logos, you are the Logos, we are all the Logos. We have no reason to blow each other up. We are all 801. We are all Alpha and Omega. So the Logos is not the Word, it's not the book, it's not the Bible. It was a big mistake, and it is the reason that people blow each other up. But you don't have to be a part of it anymore. And I pray that you will no longer be a part of it. Thank you very much. And John will come on and we'll see you in a bit. Bye-bye.